Cool. Well, kia ora koutou. It's amazing to see so many of you here this morning. On behalf of all of the team here at Tweet Aotearoa Creative New Zealand, including my colleagues here online, I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. It really is great to have so many of you here. I'll start with a karakia to open our session together. Me karakia tātou. Tu tawa mai I runga, tu tawa mai I raro, tu tawa mai I roto, tu tawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa. Haumie, tuie, taikie. Come forth from above, below, within and without, vitality and well-being for all, strengthened in unity. So for those of you who've never met me before, my name's Claire Murdoch. I'm the Senior Manager of Arts Development here at Creative New Zealand. I'm joined today by my colleagues Gretchen LaRoche, our CEO. Gretchen, thank you for your time in joining us. I know people will appreciate hearing from you. Also Debs McSmith, who runs our investments team, and also is the co-manager of our Practice and Pathways team. I want to thank you again for your time. It's a really busy time of year, obviously in the arts. So for those of us who've run organisations before, we know what November means. So I particularly thank you for making the time to come this morning. I also want to acknowledge that this is an inherently stressful thing to be doing as an arts organisation, applying testable funding in the times that we are all in at the moment. And in particular that you out in the community, out in the sector, out on the coalface of the arts are in. We can't take the uncertainty and the stress away from this process for you. Some of us really do understand it, but what we can do is give you a bit of clarity today. That's what we hope to do. We'll try and keep it really straightforward and really clear. So this is the first in a series of short webinars that are meant to help you understand and prepare for the Arts Organisations and Groups Fund for 2026. This extended fund is an extension of our existing AOG fund, and it's our next step in changing how we support artists, arts organisations and communities in Aotearoa. There's a whole lot of information, all the information in fact that you already need on our website. Timelines, questions, forms, expression of interest. So we're not going to overload you with that technical information today. Instead, what we're going to do is focus a little bit on the bigger picture behind the fund, what's changing and what's staying the same, and a few of the questions that we're getting asked the most often. I should also say that the Big Idea, the media organisation, the Big Idea, Arts Media Organisation, did a really great job of asking us all of the questions that they thought that arts organisations and groups would most need the answers to. And they published the results in an incredibly clear article earlier this week that you can find on the bigidea.nz. We'll drop the link into the chat. It's called Everything You Want to Know, almost everything you want to know about the Arts Orgs and Groups Fund. And so feel free to have a look at that as well. I think you'll find it really clear and full if today's session isn't enough. If you have questions, please do stick them in the Q&A box at any time. There is more than 400, nearly 500 people enrolled for this webinar. So you'll understand if we don't get to individual questions today, and you'll also understand if we don't take spontaneous questions, but don't worry, because we'll pick them up in the live chat Q&A next week, and we'll update the FAQs on the fund page online. In a minute, our colleagues from the Practice and Pathways team will talk about the practical details of the fund. But first, I'd love to invite our Chief Executive, Gretchen LaRoche, to talk to us about the bigger journey that this is part of. Gretchen, tēnā koe.
Kia ora, Claire, and tēnā koutou to everyone out there. Thank you so much for joining. I know that you've got a lot on, so I'm actually not going to talk too much about, the wider work and the future direction of CNZ at the moment, because I know really you've registered for this webinar to find out about the Arts Organisations and Group Fund. But there are a few questions that I get sort of fairly regularly that I thought it might be useful just to cover off as well. And so starting, this part of where we've got to with the introduction of the final stage of the Arts Organisations and Group Fund, of opening that up into the 4 tiers, is the last stage, and quite a long journey that we've been on, that began actually a couple of years ago, where we came out on the road. And you'll remember that that was in the shadow of things like capped number of applications and things like that. And so we heard really strongly from everyone out there in the sector that this really wasn't working and that there needed to be some changes. And so that's what we've been steadily implementing. But I think there's also some, in the meantime, some broader things that have come into play as well. And so I just want to kind of cover off that a little bit. One of those things is, of course, the introduction of the first ever National Arts Strategy, Amplify. And so a lot of the time people are asking me, oh, does that mean we have to speak to that strategy? Does that mean that CNZ, it becomes the Creative New Zealand strategy? Well, no, it doesn't. So Amplify remains the minister's strategy, i.e. the government strategy. And Creative New Zealand is one of the agencies that delivers to that strategy, part of the strategy. So we don't chart our direction entirely through that strategy. Some of what we do responds to it, but we remain independent of that, and we have our own strategies. We're doing our own work as well. So there's plenty of things that happen outside of that strategy as well. So Amplify doesn't become the Creative New Zealand strategy by default, but we are responsible and expected to deliver up to parts of that. And in the delivery plan, you'll actually see some of those bits outlined of where we'll take the lead in. I think it's fair just to have a real quick go over the current environment. Now, no kidding, you know what's going on out there. You know what it's feeling like. I wish I had different news, but we're not anticipating significant amounts of new funding coming in. In fact, the environment would seem to indicate we may yet be asked to make further baseline savings, which means the vote funding that comes from government, we may see less of that coming through in the next year or so. So we may have to yet tighten our belt further at Creative New Zealand. So what are we going to do about that? We can't just sit there and accept that. So we've got 3 particular strands that we're looking to see if we can actually respond effectively to that. So first strand is looking at internal savings. So tightening our own belt in the same way that many of you out there have been doing. And we've been working on that. And in the months ahead, you'll see us leaning into that a little bit more. And any internal savings that we do make will be passed on directly out to you in the sector. The second strand that we're looking at is trying to make a more fertile environment as well in support of the arts. So that's both in the advocacy and people understanding the value and impact that you make. We've been doing really good work in that, getting some good gains, but we need to do it even more. We can't keep having the conversation of having to justify the value of the arts. We need to get that story out to a lot of the decision makers that they really understand investment in the arts is not a handout, it's an investment in something that returns big value to our country and our communities. So when we're talking about changing that or trying to develop that environment further, you've seen a little bit of this come through our submission into the International Online Gambling Act has actually been one of the voices that's actually been heard. And so we've now got a 4% duty on that that'll be ring fence for community benefit. So we should hopefully feel the benefit of that. Now, I know that our whole ecosystem being reliant so heavily on gambling is not necessarily ideal. But right now in this environment, there hasn't been a desire to look at a different way. So I know that that is a complex one to take on. But for now, I can say we will have that extra percentage of money that will come through into our ecosystem and wider communities. We've also got a bill, we're also trying to get some release around gift aid. So that is actually a way of incentivising the tax deductibility coming directly back into organisations, where it doesn't need to rely on the donor having to make a second donation of that coming back in. So things like that are what we're wanting to lean into. But then also directly getting simply cash into the environment. So that is laying the ground for increasing investment from government, from lotteries, but even going, though, more actively into other areas where we think there is some potential. Now, we're not talking about going and chasing donors within New Zealand. We're not talking about going to those places that you already rely on. We're talking about the sort of interagency conversation that we can have as the National Arts Development Agency for New Zealand. So that is talking to our fellow government departments, but in particular in the global space. So we've already begun with some good early signs, conversations with UNESCO, but we've also got, for instance, meetings coming up with another 2 global intergovernment departments. So it's that type of work that we're looking to do. So we are actively trying to grow the hutia for everyone. We're not just sitting there waiting for things to change miraculously. Another piece of the context, so I would also just want to share, and that is the fact that, we know that actually what we're seeing coming down the pipe is looking like it's going to continue to be challenging. Our recent survey material, Audience Atlas, does show us that potentially in the next 12 months, we're expecting a net decline by 5% of people that identify as potential consumers of the arts. So that's an important one to note of just when you're making your projections on if you're reliant on sales, audience sales or others. And we are also clearly seeing, and this will be no news to you, that donations and fundraising are also tracking down at the moment. Now, you may be experiencing a different scenario to this, and that's awesome and good on you. But this is what we are seeing. So we just want to pass that on. So all of that means that as you approach this fund, I wish I could tell you that we had a lot more money available, but the reality is we don't, I'm afraid, right now. If we get our hands on it, we will be adding it and we will be passing it out to you. But it does mean it will be a competitive round. But in particular, we're really recognising, though, that you are working in an environment of significant increased costs. So we want to be really clear and just squash any misunderstanding. We are not asking you to do more. In fact, if you want to deliver less and do it as well as you can because of cost increase, that's okay by us. This fund is all about demonstrating the impact that you make, the benefits you deliver into your community. And so the quantity and the scale of work you do, we know we want you to judge that. So if you want to represent those increased costs, maintain the same level, we're not going to be saying, oh gosh, they're doing less or the same. How can they be asking for more? Okay, so we are being realistic about that and understanding, but also just flagging that we are in this constrained environment too. So just to be really thoughtful about that, be really clear in your budgets. Don't feel the need to pad. You don't need to tag the CNZ funding to specific things. We want to give you the best chance to be flexible, to apply it into how you need to make your organisation as strong as it can be. So just to reiterate, please don't feel that you have to try and tell us you're going to do more to catch our attention. Just keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a brilliant job. And so that's the last thing I want to say, is just to thank you for the amazing work that you are doing in difficult and challenging times. But what you're producing is outstanding, and New Zealand really appreciates that. So kia kaha, ngā mihi, and I'll pass on back to the team now. Thank you.
Oh, tēnā koe, Gretchen. I think that was incredibly clear, and more of the themes that you've mentioned will come through as we continue to talk. I'm happy to pick it up now before I pass it on to my colleague, Debs. So the shifts that Gretchen has alluded to that we've put in place with some of our funding programs, including for the arts program that was developed in response to sector feedback, continue now with this extension to our current Arts Orgs and Groups Fund. And it recognises the vital role that you, arts organisations and groups, play in your communities to drive artistic practice, innovation, creativity, create new leaders and pathways. And we have listened to the need for opportunities for more long-term support for more organisations than we've funded long-term in the past. So that's the overall purpose of it. And again, just to echo Gretchen's points, it's not about how many events you run or how big your budget is or the exact activities that you propose to do or whether you meet the needs of every single possible community in New Zealand. It's about the outcomes and the impacts that you guys are making in and for your communities. So really briefly, I'll talk a little bit now about what's changing and what's staying the same. Incidentally, I have seen a message come up in the chat that says that despite us telling you to put notes into the chat, that is disabled today because this is because we're in webinar mode. My apologies, but don't worry, we've got multiple channels for being able to ask questions and to send us your most asked questions, and we'll share those to this group as soon as this webinar is finished so that you can have a sensible channel for asking those questions and we will undertake to respond to them very quickly. Cool. Okay, so the 2026 Arts Orgs and Groups Fund is an extension of the fund run in 24 and 25. And that means that a great deal hasn't changed for organisations who've been applying through this channel for us. The purpose is the same. This fund supports arts organisations and groups with a dynamic vision for the arts in Aotearoa to deliver a program of artistic work that makes a positive impact in their communities. It's still very focused on impact and on value, on what you do, why it matters, and who benefits. The fund still runs once a year, and the eligibility settings remain the same. That means being New Zealand-based or international if your work clearly benefits New Zealand artists, and choosing one category only to apply through, Ngātoi Māori, Pacific Arts, or general arts, even if you could fit more than one of those categories. So the art forms that we can and can't do and don't support have not changed. What we mean by arts organisations, groups, communities, benefit and impact has not changed, and those definitions are there on our website. What has changed is the structure of the fund. So from 2026, there will be 4 tiers, 2 new tiers, and support can run for 1 or 2 or 3 years. What this means is that you'll need to have a good think about choosing the tier that fits your size, your role, and your impact in your communities. So tiers 1 and 2 are not changed. That's still up to 50,000 or 50,000 to 125,000 per year. Tiers 3 and 4 are new, offering opportunities to apply for higher levels of support. For 125,000 to 500,000 and then over 500,000 a year. There are clear requirements for tiers 3 and 4. You need an average turnover of at least 250,000 per year for the past 2 years, and you must have received Creative New Zealand funding in the last 3 years, so from 2023 to 2025, not including from CCS, which is our Creative Communities Scheme. Our awesome Creative Communities Scheme. If you want to apply for 3 or 4, those tiers, there's a simple expression of interest form on our website. So just confirm those 2 things, submit the form, and we'll confirm your eligibility within the week. EOIs are already open. They'll stay open until 5 days before applications close, so you won't miss the window. And just to repeat, all of the details, all of the dates, and all of the guidance that you need are on our website now. I'm about to hand over to my colleague, Deborah McSmith. Debs, please help unpack what we actually mean by arts organisations, groups, and programs of work. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa and mihi, Claire and Gretchen. Kia ora everyone, it's really great to see so many people here, somewhat intimidating, but great to see so much interest. Thank you for joining us. Riri kaua nā ki mihi kia koutou katoa. Yes, we often get asked, like, what exactly counts as an arts organisation? You know, we have definitions on the website, but we've kept them flexible on purpose. So arts organisations, we know, comes in lots of shapes and sizes. Usually they deliver ongoing or regular artistic activity, have a clear long-term purpose or vision for the arts. They'd continue to operate even if people or projects change, and they have arts outcomes as their core activity. If your organisation's main purpose isn't artistic, or if arts outcomes are a lovely side effect rather than the main focus, this fund may not be the best fit right now. You don't need to be a registered charity or incorporated society or limited liability company to apply for tiers 1 and 2. But for tiers 3 and 4, that's for the amounts over 125,000, you will need some more formal systems in place. You might think of things like governing boards or kaumātua groups, a clear constitution or set of tikanga, some sort of plans to help guide your work, and basic financial and risk systems. These structures help sustain your kaupapa, and that's what we're looking for at those higher tiers. Moving on to talking about programs of work, because this also comes up a lot. We are not funding one-off projects or isolated activities through this fund. So a program is a coordinated set of work that contributes to a bigger purpose. It's about the why and how your work connects, not just the what. Programs are flexible and they can evolve as long as they stay true to your kaupapa and the community outcomes. So when you're thinking about your application, focus on that bigger picture, the change you're making, and not just the list of things that you're doing. The fund is all about supporting programs that make a positive impact in your communities, and that's the heart of it. We want to understand your community, who they are, how you're connecting with them, and how your work meets their needs. But communities can look really different. They might be based on a region, a shared whakapapa, an artistic practice, or a lived experience. They're just groups of people with a shared interest. And you know best who your communities are. And so we want to hear that from you in your own words. And then getting to a question we get asked a lot of the time, how much should we apply for? And it's tricky. There's no magic number, I'm sorry. It's really about what makes sense for your scale, your kaupapa, and your impact. Asking for the maximum doesn't mean you'll get more. Asking for less doesn't make it more likely that you'll get funded. What matters is that your budget makes sense for the impact you want to have. A well-justified, realistic budget is always stronger than a big one that doesn't line up with your plans. Asking for more in the hope that we'll trim it down won't work out if it risks making your budget look unrealistic. The strongest applications usually show that they've thought carefully about what's realistic for both their program of activity, the impacts they'll make, and for CNZ to be able to support. So do be honest about what you need, but do also keep in mind Gretchen's message. We'll be weighing up lots of applications against a fixed amount of money. Hopefully you've had a good look through our website and have a pretty good idea about how you can start to prepare your application. And we've also got a bunch of other ways that we are going to help you prepare. In December, we're going to host 3 webinars like this. They're going to be on finding your fit, so we'll be looking at eligibility and tiers. There'll be one on what makes a good application, and there'll be one later in the month on building the numbers, so budgets, finances. And in the new year, we'll hold a dedicated webinar just about navigating through applying in our portal. Now, all of these webinars will be recorded and added to our YouTube channel, so don't worry if you can't make the specific time. And then we're going to try this thing called live chat Q&As that will run every Thursday after each webinar. So this session's Q&A will be next Thursday at 12 p.m. So those are text-based sessions. Similar to this, just no cameras, no audio, and it's just a chance to drop questions in the chat and get answers in real time from our team. You can register through the links on our website, and we'll also upload summaries from each of those sessions to the website afterwards, so everyone's learning from everyone else. And then in January and February, we're going to host what we're calling office hours. So they'll just be little 15-minute one-on-one slots with our advisors at that same Thursday noontime slot. So you can just drop in and ask any quick questions to help you prepare your application. And of course, all of these dates, registration, links, resources is on the Arts Organisations and Group Fund page on our website. That's kind of the main gist of all of it. But, Claire, before we go, what are the things you think people should take away from today? There's been a lot.
Kia ora, Debs. Thanks heaps. Yeah. And I suppose what I wanted to add to what you said is that, we look forward to there being multiple ways of engaging with us throughout this period. So, do ask your questions, do get in touch, and we'll consistently and transparently reflect them back to you so that everyone can see what everyone's asking. Okay, so what's important? First, I guess I can't emphasize enough that it's all about impact. I'm not going to repeat myself again about that. Be authentic, use your own voice. We want to hear from you as you. You don't need to mirror our strategies, past or present, or our historical investment guidelines, or to say that you're doing international work if you're not doing international work, or that you hope to one day do international work if you're not doing international work. We want to understand and support your purpose and your impact. Cool. Secondly, I think start early. A number of organisations have been in touch with us, have suggested that they want to wait until there's more information available or until there's detailed guidelines. To be very clear, these funds are deliberate in their simplicity. And so much like all of the rest of the For the Arts program, which we do get really good feedback on in terms of how simple and straightforward they are, everything you need to know is there online now. There's no further questions coming. And while we will make sure that we publish our assessment criteria when the fund opens, those are going to be really, really simple and very like the questions. So there's not any need to wait for some further information drop. I think that's really important. And again, everything you need to know to get started is there. So do check your eligibility, go through the EOI if you're eligible for, if you need to for those tiers, and if that suits your scale and your impact. Look at the questions, start gathering your financials, start thinking about, the impact that you have on your community, and follow our FAQs and follow our online resources and follow the webinars that will come up, as well as the advice from our team. Next one, again, and at the risk of being repetitive, it's really important to understand that even very great, strong applications may not be able to be funded, or that we may not fund up to the limit available in every tier, or that some great organisations may be offered less than requested or less than funded in previous years. We are expecting close to 700 organisations to apply in this round, and we do have a fixed budget. Normally, as a benchmark, offers of funding will be no more than 70% of an organisation's annual turnover, and in many cases, maybe less. And so just be realistic and strategic, I think, remembering that CNZ is usually one of several supporters of your work and not the only one. I will. Gretchen, what about you? Would you like to add anything? We've both been on the other side of this process. We've both run arts organisations, you very recently. Is there anything that you want to add in terms of candid advice for applicants to this fund?
Just really briefly, and look, everyone will do it their own way, but I think it's just also really important to just reassure that the idea behind and the move towards this impact focus is to really get away from that idea that who writes the best application has the best chance. And that's not the case. We want a really simple, clear application. So in this case, in this instance, more words is not necessarily better. So that is one very practical piece of advice I would give, is actually try and refine down, not add to. Can you say it in fewer words? Because saying it with fewer words, but the same message, will speak really strongly to assessors and council So that notion of just keeping it to the point is really, I think, one I would encourage. But also to feel really confident that it's not about painting this incredible future and saying, we will do this, it's going to be this. It's really important to actually base it on, we have done that, we are doing this, and therefore the next step is this. So actually demonstrating your impact through what you have been doing is actually really important here and of interest, and then what the future holds for you, rather than forgetting, that ordering of that and just talking all about what you want to do in the future. It's really helpful for us to understand what you have been doing and where you're coming from, and that the future work you're proposing is grounded on that. So I think perhaps that's just what I would maybe offer as my final 5 cents dollar.
If I can just jump
Many
in,
thanks.
I think what Gretchen says there about being really crisp and clear is really important. With that many applications coming through, assessors are going to be really under the pump to work through them all. We're anticipating that they'll have maybe 30 minutes to read applications for tiers 1 and 2, 90 minutes for tiers 3 and 4 in order to get through them all. So do think about that when you're putting your applications together. Make sure that all the most important information is at the top, and that you're really succinct and clear about what you're trying to communicate to the assessors. I think that's covered a lot. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot here. We don't want to overload you with too much information. If we didn't cover what you're interested in, please do come back next Thursday to the live chat Q&A. Pop in your question and we'll be happy to answer it there. A little reminder that you can register through the link on our website. And yeah, keep your eye out for those other webinars. And of course, staff are here to help as well if you have any other questions.
Cool, Debs. And organisations can get in touch and ask us other questions through the email addresses on our website, can't they?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, look, many thanks everybody for your time this morning. It's incredibly valuable, and for your attention. We look forward to hearing from you with your questions. And thanks for being part of today's kōrero. I will close us with a karakia and let you get on your way. Whakaria ake te ke te kōrero ki te pou tuarongo. Hei tiki anō mō muri ake nei. Kia wātia ai. Kia tina, homie, huie, tai kie. Hang the basket of knowledge upon the back post of the whare, so it may be collected again hereafter. Clear the space, know and understand. Join together, come together, be united as one. Many thanks, everybody. See you at next week's live chat, and we'll continue to talk to you as we go along. Ka kite anō.